Um, so we will talk this through a little bit, but Jake's going to talk about the donor advised funds. We're here primarily to talk about our competitive grant making process. But as you'll see, we've used the competitive grant making process to streamline a couple of our other grant cycles. And we hope you'll find this something that takes the best advantage of your development time and doesn't require you to submit redundant applications to us for a variety of other kinds of programs. And then we'll talk a little bit about our special initiatives, which are not a part of this common application process, but we know you all will still want to know a little bit about those and their deadlines.
Morning, everybody. As Leanne said, I'm not Maggie. I'm Jake Marini, and but the live link to Maggie, you can also take my name down as well and be able to help you with any questions you have about the funds with Philadelphia Foundation. And as Angie said before, we manage a number of funds that have been established through organizations, individuals, families, through living donors, through bequests to support philanthropic areas of interest. And what this slide represents, this inverted pyramid, is the type of funds that we handle. And I'm going to start at the bottom of the pyramid, which is the undesignated funds, which are exactly that. They are unrestricted and allow donors to support the most pressing community needs in general that the foundation would direct. Moving up from there, again, as described, a field of interest fund is when a donor has a particular philanthropic area of interest, but is not directing towards one specific organization. So that could be something like in support of youth services or food insecurity or animal welfare, arts and culture. So it's exactly that. It's a more general field of interest. When we have a number of funds we manage there. Next level up are organizational endowments, and they are established by nonprofits who have to create a permanent endowment within the foundation. And Philadelphia Foundation will handle all this sort of administrative and investment responsibilities. It could be that some of the nonprofit organizations that you represent today might have a fund with us. The next size up within the pyramid are our scholarships, which support college-bound students. And we have a few different levels within that allow the donor to choose their level of involvement in the process, again, whether they're directing it toward a particular institution or more broadly. And then beyond that are our designated funds. And that, unlike field of interest, is where donors can choose a specific charity with which to direct their philanthropy. At the very top of this pyramid, the donor advised funds, where we have almost 800 of them for our small team of 4 mighty development and donor services officers. So these funds are managed by individuals, families, organizations who have particular philanthropic needs and want to get extremely hands-on in their grant making. They direct their grants and to a number of organizations, and we help facilitate this process. Essentially, it is an important sort of tax advantage for the donors. So this is why we have such a large pool here. And if you move to the next slide, Ted, I can sort of explain how those donors that we work with can work with your organizations as well. So with these funds, one of the things that my team does is, apart from the technical advice on how to manage the grants themselves, is that we also share information with them about nonprofits that they may be interested in, or if we know what their particular passion is. It's important for us to educate our donors and keep them informed. So we have what we call a one-pager. And when you have the slides, you'll see that you'll have a live link there where you can provide us with information on your organization. As much information as you feel is relevant. You can provide pictures, whatever you need. But essentially, it's a way for us on the donor services side to speak with our donors and provide them with some opportunities for their philanthropy that they may not be aware of.
All right, so moving into the competitive grant making process. So uh, we are very focused on trying to make sure that as applicants, you're coming into the category and the grant cycle where you have the best chance of possibly being funded. And so we've made a couple changes to our process that we think are going to be um, better on your end and will make more sense in terms of applications. We've essentially broken our traditional process into two steps. The first step will be the creation of a common application, essentially the first half of our traditional application, where you provide all of your organizational information, your mission, your programs. We're going to ask you there a little bit about operationalizing equity and the demographics that we know is kind of onerous, but does help us in our evaluations. So we're going to open that process for 3 weeks and um, close it on March the 1st. And then after a week, we will have evaluated each of those applications. Uh, when you do your common application, you'll see that you're going to be able to say, I'd like to be considered for this competitive category, but I'd also like to be considered for one or two other grant categories that we have in here. So you'll see those as we move through. And on March the 8th, you'll get a response back from us, either agreeing that you're eligible to apply for those grant cycles or opening an application to you for a different grant cycle and grant category. So the reason that we're going to do that is because we're trying to slot you into the place where we have the greatest possibility that you might be funded. So there's no guarantee in that second process, but it helps us to move you to a place where we think your application is the best fit in terms of the work of your organization. And also, of course, we're moving people around a little bit in terms of the categories of funding that we have available. So trying to make a good match. So step 2, when you get that invitation on March the 8th, that is exclusive to your organization. Please do not share it with other organizations because it will not work for them as a link to apply. If you're talking to peers at other organizations and they're not sure how to access, just have them email one of us, please. So for the competitive or discretionary grant making process, this shows you a little bit about step 1 and step 2. So as I said, this is essentially our existing application process broken into 2 parts. The first part, an organizational profile, open now, closing on March the 1st. Closing on March the 1st. Then we'll have a week and we'll be back to you on March the 8th. The way that we'll come back to you is in an email to the person that you designated as the contact when you filled out your application. So make sure that that person is watching for an email. It'll come to you from our Smarter Select system. If for any reason, I'm going to say by March the 9th, you haven't received that email from us, please reach out to us, either to one of us via the emails we're sharing here or to our grant making services at philofound.org. And we will make sure that you get the right information. Because this is a slightly new process, we're going to do a second information webinar on March the 14th from 11 to 12 to answer any questions that people have about this second half of the process. But it's pretty straightforward. The first step is the organizational profile. The second step is those 4 or 5 questions that are unique to the specific kind of funding. And hopefully you'll see this as something that's an improvement. We're excited about it and wanting to not require a lot of redundant information from each of you as you're going through our application processes. All right. So these are our competitive grant making categories. We're going to go into each of these in depth. The program officers who manage these will speak to each one. So direct service, that'll be Casey Thompson in a minute. The impact grants, Sharessa Gordon in a minute. Leadership grants, I'll be back to talk a little bit about those. And moving on. The advocacy on restricted grants, I'll talk a little bit about, and then we'll hear from Angie Pabon about the Fund for Children and Strategic Investment in Youth. These are the additional applications that we have added to this common application process. And so instead of filling out completely new applications for each of these, you'll be able to come through the organizational profile and then indicate that you'd like to be considered for these as well. And if we evaluate you and find you eligible, you will get a second link in addition to your competitive link that will tell you how to fill out additional information here.
I'll be going through these three special initiatives that we will also be using the competitive application process for. So we will be accepting the sort of profile information for organizations who want to be considered for the Henrietta Tour Awards, the Foreman Family Fund, and GSK. So Henrietta Tower Works is a smaller, it's a separate organization from Philadelphia Foundation, but we do their back office and grant making efforts. So they will consider applications from 501c3 organizations who are serving Philadelphia only, and the budget should be 2.5 million or under. Grants are made once per year, and the grant amounts ranges from 1 to 5,000, the average being about 2 to 3,000. Organizations who are outside of Philadelphia will not be considered for Henrietta. If you have 3 years of consecutive funding, they will ask that you cycle off. If you discriminate in areas of based on race, ethnic origin, sexual or religious preferences, age, disability, or gender, again, not eligible. Organizations with budgets larger than 2.5, and if the proposal is requesting assistance for religious or political reasons, also will not be supported. So it's for smaller organizations serving Philadelphia only. And they provide support for general operating support or specific program support. The next one is the Foreman Family Fund, and they provide support for programs during school or out of school time that provide training, education, exposure to the visual arts of photography, architectural drawing and architecture, or exposure to the written arts in any format. These programs should be serving young people ages 11 to 18. And this also is a one-time funding for the year. So if you would like to be considered for Foreman, I suggest you come in through this process now, because if we open in the fall, you may not have the opportunity to apply for this again. And the final one here is GSK. GSK supports and honor up to 10 organizations with programs that are making measurable impact on the community health factors of community safety, education, employment, and income, family and social support, housing and the built environment, and also nutrition and physical activity. They seek to support organizations that demonstrate that impact criteria, being innovative, well measured, have strong partnerships, high performing or accountable, are community centered and transformative, and are also operationalizing equity across all areas of the organization. Organization must be a 501c3, and if you're not a 501c3, you should have a fiscal sponsor. You should be located within the 5-county region for the direct service, impact, advocacy, and which one did I miss? Impact. And if you're in Burlington and Camden, you may apply for impact and leadership.
Mm-hmm.
Organizations who are coming in for Fund for Children and Henrietta, remember you must be in Philadelphia and serving Philadelphia residents. For all the grant types except for Henrietta and which other one it is? For Henrietta, right, all grant types except for Henrietta, your budget must be at least $100,000. So again, for Henrietta, it can be smaller budgets, but for all the other grant types, it must be over $100,000. If the organization is fiscally sponsored, they should have their own advisory board. So in the application, we will ask for a list of your board members. We do not want the board members for the fiscal sponsor, but from the organization, the applying organization. Again, all applications for funding except for Henrietta must employ at least one full-time equivalent staff. So again, for Henrietta, you do not need to meet this criteria. All organizations must support BIPOC and other historical and marginalized and underinvested communities, with at least 70% of the participants should be low-income population. If you're a statewide or national organization, you should demonstrate that at least 75% of your budget is raised locally, and there is a local advisory board as well. Any organization applying should not have deficits that are greater than 10% of your operating budget within the past year. And again, for all our competitive grants, you may only submit one application. And since we'll be sending you a link, we'll only send you a link to one of these applications. But if you meet the criteria for the other special initiative grants we discussed earlier, you will get an additional link to submit application for that as well.
Within this competitive grant making, it's the only fund that is limited to the city of Philadelphia and Philadelphia County only programs. The Fund for Children was created as a fund to help children in Philadelphia. So different to all the other funds, advocacy, leadership, impact, and direct service. Those funds are for our entire region, while the Fund for Children is only in Philadelphia. You need to be serving children ages 0 through 18 in the city of Philadelphia. And 70% of those that you're serving should be in the most under-resourced communities in Philadelphia. So that's why we put this additional slide here to show you that Fund for Children is a little bit different from the other competitive grant-making buckets.
Eligible organizations. So organizations not located in the service area or serve a constituent base outside of the geographic areas will not be selected. Cemeteries, umbrella funding organizations, schools with regular K-12 school curriculum will not be funded, colleges, universities, general child care agencies, government agencies, libraries, and programs housed in universities or local chapters of national organizations that raise less than 75% of their own funding. So those organizations are ineligible.
One thing that we want to continue to speak to our grantees about, first of all, I want to make sure that I say publicly that I think that you guys do amazing work, and that the city of Philadelphia and the greater Philadelphia region has an enormous amount of nonprofits that are doing great work. From our end, we're looking to push to have diversity, equity, and inclusion as a center point of the work that we're funding. This is in fact something that we've been reporting to our grant making services committee of the board. They are the ones that basically do the final application for all competitive grants. and they have been giving us really positive feedback about the fact that we're showing them, you know, who is being served, but also that the nonprofits are working diligently to get along the spectrum of a continuum of diversity, equity, and inclusion in their boards and their staffing, which is really important to the work that we're all doing here in the Philadelphia Foundation and in this region. Also, we do our best to be responsive to community needs. So we are really looking to learn from you and to learn with you, but also doing a lot of pivoting of what are some areas that we need to emphasize and really put more work into. So we're responsive to whatever community needs are coming up. And also, we're looking to you as the people in the front lines to continue to do the work, but also help us envision what the transformations are. What is it that we all need to do together to lift everybody in the greater Philadelphia and the city of Philadelphia region to, you know, better economic outcomes, better, you know, less violence, less all of the metrics that show us that we're a community that's working shoulder to shoulder to make our lives and the ones better. So all of these things are stuff that are issues that factor into the work that you're doing, but also is stuff that we're paying attention to when we're reading your applications and hearing what you're doing out there in the community.
So I'm going to talk a little bit about the advocacy unrestricted grants. These are part of our competitive group, and they are for groups using advocacy or community organizing best practices. We're looking for policy, regulatory, or legislative change on behalf of marginalized and low-income communities in greater Philadelphia. We'd like to know a little bit about your track record of making change. This is available across the region, Philadelphia, the surrounding counties, and the 2 counties in New Jersey. Organizations must support BIPOC groups, of course, and may also focus specifically on another group of traditionally marginalized population. And we give strong priority to organizations that are working with a majority of folks who are at 70% or less of the poverty level. And so in some cases, especially in the surrounding counties, your numbers may be a little bit different from that. Think about whether or not a couple of your programs are specifically focused on people living at or below the poverty level and apply on behalf of that program.
Direct service continues to be our general operating fund, but also one of our pinnacle funds, which is typically awarded to folks who have received past grants in some bucket of Philadelphia Foundation funding. And that we do especially look closely at the demographics of leadership in this bucket or significant work to move forward on having demographics representative of the community served. That DEI work has moved into the realms of policy and practice. And so we definitely have had a lot of great work around training and building knowledge. And that's an important piece, but the most successful applicants will have already been moving on efforts at the governance and management area, including that some form of strategic plan, especially with all of the changes in the field coming out of COVID. That there has been some sort of planning that includes external and staff and constituent feedback as part of that process also makes more competitive and general best practices around, supporting staff, making sure that there is community responsiveness and a lot of those elements that Angie mentioned on the general characteristics, but that all of that is used to kind of continually work towards transformational impact.
The impact application is for program-related activities in nonprofits serving high poverty populations in greater Philadelphia. And this includes Burlington, and Bucks counties in New Jersey. The applicants must demonstrate results-oriented programming, including a track record of success and proven outcomes for low-income communities. So you should be tracking and evaluating your program to determine how it's having an impact on the population that you are serving. Successful applications also use trauma-informed strength and racial equity-based policies and practices in program development and delivery. And pilot programs will be considered. Your organization can demonstrate at least success in program delivery in prior years, delivering outcomes-based programs in the past 2 years and achieving desired goals for target populations. So if you're applying for funding for a new program, you should be able to demonstrate that the organization has run successful programs in the past.
Our leadership grants are to increase skills as well as the racial diversity of pipelines for executives and boards of nonprofits, to strengthen the capacity of nonprofit leaders in a variety of areas, governance, planning, civic engagement, board and staff development. I need to emphasize here, though, that we do not support strategic planning through any of our grants, and we will not support strategic planning through a leadership grant. So just want to make sure that folks know that. We often support leadership transitions, and we sometimes also support work that needs to go on inside of an organization as a part of a leadership transition or a part of another critical either opportunity or issue that the organization or the population it's serving are experiencing. Typically, this is a single year of funding for a specific effort. It's very unlikely to receive multiple years of funding for leadership or to receive a leadership grant 2 years back to back. So just to know that what you propose to us should be something you could complete in 1 year. And in general, we expect to see that you've used the existing resources that we offer, especially Catch-A-Fire, which is available through the Key Skills Hub. So we'd like to see that you've used the offerings of Catch-A-Fire before coming into us for training or other support that would be available through Catch-A-Fire, if that makes sense. So that is our leadership grants.
We're focused on serving in Philadelphia children 0 through 18. We are doing, we're looking to spread these dollars across the city to the neediest communities. And like I said, looking at it with the transformative lens, as well as pivoting to address whatever issues are popping up across the city. Currently, we're looking to make sure that the over 70% of the people that the young people you're serving are basically living in the poverty guidelines. And yeah, and we're looking to see that you are working in a lot of the most underserved communities in Philadelphia. We all know Philadelphia has a huge need given our economic status. So it's a challenge, but it's also a place where a lot of pilot programs and a lot of places that are thinking, organizations that are thinking transformatively step and talk to us about, addressing system-wide issues. For example, one of the Fund for Children grantees in the past has been looking to provide more services to kids in care, children that are in the foster care system that are in the middle schools, because we know that it's very hard for kids that are in care to get into special high schools, therefore get into better academic schools that will help them get into college. So, we're building back to try to support that population. And that's a lot of what the Fund for Children is looking to do. It's out of school time support for programs. It could be enrichment, it could be sports, it could be all kinds of wraparound services around youth. We do not fund schools or programming that should be happening and being paid for by by the educational system.
Important considerations for all the grants that we discussed. Priority funding will be given to organizations that are operationalizing equity with a strong focus on those led by BIPOC chief executives. Organizations operating less than 3 years must provide a copy of the executive summary of the board approved strategic plan, and if available, also a copy of your organization's theory of change. Generally, the foundation does not use discretionary or competitive dollars to support organizations where there are familiar relationships across the board and staff. And you should also have the following policies in place: copies of conflicts of interest policy, whistleblower policy, and have an independent process for comparability data for determining compensation, and providing a copy of the 990 to the board prior to filing.
There are certain supporting documents that need to be attached, which are listed on this slide. We want to make sure that you know that right now the foundation is really pivoting to use Candid GuideStar data as much as we can. So if you have your 2021 or 2022 990 already uploaded into GuideStar, which is on Candid's platform, then you wouldn't need to attach them. If you haven't updated your profile, your nonprofit profile on Candid, then you would need to attach them to your application. So basically we need, of course, your determination of being a nonprofit. If you're fiscally sponsored, then that will be the determination for your fiscal sponsor, your list of directors. I spoke to the audit or the 990 just now. We require the current Pennsylvania Bureau of Charitable Organizations certificate, executive summary of your correct strategic plan. And this is a really, really important piece for newer nonprofits. We want to make sure that newer nonprofits have been doing the work in the background to not only continue to do the wonderful work that they're doing, but also speak to and really think ahead to the sustainability of the organization. We also, of course, need a board-approved non-discrimination policy and a budget. A project budget would be if you're applying for a smaller portion of the work that you're doing within a program of your organization. So if you're an organization that has an overall $5 million budget, but the program that you're only has a $500,000 budget, then you would need to provide us both of those.
Just a reminder here of the dates and deadlines, and we don't yet have the dates for the fall, but we expect that they'll follow our traditional path of opening in August and closing in September. These are some of our special initiatives. So you saw earlier the special initiatives that will be included in this competitive application process. These initiatives will continue to stand alone. Artworks will have its own application process. We expect Artworks will open in either late April or early May. The Black Community Leaders Fund, we've been a little bit delayed in opening applications for the Black Community Leaders Fund. I expect that they will open later in the spring and be very focused on small organizations with budgets at $500,000 or less. And finally, for the arts and culture organizations, some of you are applicants for the Edna Andrade process. You'll see the deadlines here for the Andrade process, and that too will be a separate standalone application process. Let's see, moving on.
The LenFest Foundation grants have a two-step process with a letter of inquiry and then an invitation to apply. And once folks, if you have had an LOI accepted in the past, you do not need to resubmit one in the same respect if it's been turned down in the past. You shouldn't just apply again unless you have a conversation and something has changed in that way. Programs support youth development with a particular focus on job training, or as many programs and some of the city work is moving towards career-connected learning. And there's a very strong emphasis on having data results that you can show. Long anticipated opening of the district attorney grants with some change to that process as well this year. The current cycle is open. It will focus only on addiction prevention or recovery programs, but that could be for youth and or adults. And so there will be an upcoming webinar on that, which is tentatively scheduled for February 26th, and the deadline will be in early March. It's currently March 6th. That might end up pushing back just a wee bit. But those grants prioritize grassroots organizations serving high-need areas, and obviously Kensington and the River Wards would be a huge focus for this cycle at this point.
Hi, everyone. My name is Kim Gilmore. I'm the program officer for scholarships. We opened our scholarships on February 6th with a deadline of May 13th. If you visit our website, you'll be able to see the available scholarships that we have for this year. And I also encourage all of you that if you have any or know of any graduating high school seniors, to encourage them to apply. You will notice on our website that we have several scholarships, and it's just to be noted that there are several scholarships that we give, that we award for each of them.
Skills Hub is our landing page for our Catch a Flyer platform. Catch a Flyer is a technological platform in which nonprofits can join, and you create projects that can be as broad as, projects to help you develop a fundraising plan, projects to help you edit a video that you created for that you can use for marketing, or projects where you're doing a strategic plan. So the foundation has been supporting nonprofits since 2017. That meaning that we have been supporting them by paying for their access to Catch a Flyer. So moving forward, we are continuing to do that. We're trying to strategically narrow down who is using the platform. Mostly because, as a technological platform, you get what you put into it. So we have had a lot of nonprofits that have used it very successful, and a lot of other nonprofits that have signed up and not really used the platform. So we're in the process of revamping that. But it is an incredible way of maximizing your organizational footprint without adding a lot of staff, because the technology there can really help you to do some of these things like board development, fundraising plans, and, video editing, and doing it with volunteers that are already in that platform.